Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Thank you for joining me. I am excited to have this conversation. I know that I've been talking it up on my social media. I've been sharing with you all the last few days. And the reason I'm excited is because I think it's a great opportunity for business owners. It's a great opportunity for small business owners of color, specifically. But if you're joining us and you're watching us live, you're going to want to stay until the end of the conversation because we're going to share a lot of tips. We're going to ask questions. We're going to talk everything that you need to know about this great opportunity that Comcast has available. And if you're not familiar, you see that logo at the top of your screen that says Comcast RISE. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the Comcast RISE Fund, which is opening up a grant opportunity for business owners, small business owners in 6 different cities. And Houston, where we're all located, that's where one of the cities, and that's one of the cities that we're going to be focusing on. In Houston alone, there are 100 grants available. Each one is $10,000. That's a total of $1 million. Across the 6 cities that Comcast is operating this program, that's $6 million that are available for these small business owners. So you're gonna want to watch until the end and have listen to all the questions that we're gonna ask in the conversation. If you're watching the replay, same thing applies to you. Watch the whole thing and get all the details because we're gonna be sharing some important tidbits. So before we get started, everybody knows that BIPOC small business owners have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's important for small business owners because they're still struggling to get the support. So having the private sector step up in this way is really important. And I can go on and on, but let me just jump in because I'm excited about our speakers and I don't want to take too much away. Let me introduce our speakers. First up, Toni Beck. She's Vice President of External Affairs for Comcast Houston. We have Paul Gore, who's Director of Community Development at the Asian Chamber of Commerce here in Houston. And then we also have Tammi Wallace, who's co-founder and president and CEO of the Greater Houston LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. So, this is a panel of experts, panel of folks who have a lot of information to share. And I want to start with Toni because, Toni, I think we're going to have a lot of people that have questions for you that are excited about this opportunity. So I know I talked a little bit about the Comcast RISE program and what this opportunity is, but if you could share a bit more about what it is, that would be great.
Yeah, no, happy to. And Juan, thank you so much for giving us this platform to speak about this program. We can't shout this from the rooftops enough because it's such an important program that's making such a difference to small businesses here in Houston. I'm just going to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about kind of what this really is all about, and then we can talk about sort of the actual program. But this is all about closing the digital divide. And we know that exists. And as a company, we've been working to close that gap, bridge the digital divide for a decade or longer. So we know that we have such a unique position and role to play, and we take that really, really seriously. And we also know that what we've done to date is not enough, and there's much more work to be done. Juan, you said it, that during the pandemic, small businesses owned by people of color were disproportionately hard hit during the pandemic, social unrest that we all unfortunately saw. And I was looking at some stats the other day, and I think we were all together at Mayor Turner's news conference a few weeks ago where we announced the Comcast RISE investment fund that we'll talk more about today. But he gave out some stats that I think are absolutely stunning. And if I'm right, it's between sort of, if you look at people of color owned businesses, small businesses, between, I think it was February and April, Black owned businesses, businesses owned by people of color, declined by 40+% in that time frame. Latinx owned businesses, small businesses, I think it's like 30, 31, 32. And then Asian owned businesses is in the low 20%. And if you compare that to sort of the national average, just the general decline in small businesses, it is way more. They were absolutely the hardest hit with this pandemic. So when we saw that as a company, we sort of said we got to do more. We got to keep going in terms of the journey that we're on to try and address this digital equity issue that's so important to society. And so we put in place Comcast RISE, and we started out with 2 components to it. One of them was the sort of sales, marketing, advertising component, sort of get the message out. So how do we help small businesses owned by people of color tell their customers, tell their clients, we're here, we're alive and well, we're doing business, come to us. And so we helped give out grants and help through our effective business arm, which is our advertising arm of the company. And then the other component was technology makeovers. And if you think about small businesses, and if you think back to what happened during the pandemic, so many of them had to pivot from, maybe they were brick and mortar businesses, and all of a sudden they had to go virtual, they had to go digital. How do they do that? They didn't have the resources to be able to make that really, really important pivot. So Comcast Business went in through Comcast RISE and helped a number of these small businesses do that. So that was the sort of the advertising and marketing piece, and then the technology makeovers. And then when we sort of continued to see what was going on, we said we got to do even more. And so we added the investment fund component to Comcast RISE. And what that is, Juan, you mentioned it. We've done this before. We did this in Houston earlier this year. Gave out $1 million in grants. And that is $10,000 grants to 100 businesses owned by people of color. Wildly successful, and that's heartwarming. And I think, if you followed this program at all, you would have heard some stories. And I know Paul and Tammi, you can add to those stories. But it just wasn't enough. So we're going to do it again. And it's another $1 million into the Houston community for small businesses owned by people of color in Harris County and Fort Bend County. No strings attached. All you have to do is go to the ComcastRISE.com website, fill in your application. I know it's easy. I haven't done it myself, but we've certainly asked recipients from round one, and Tammi and Paul, I know that you can add here as well. It's a simple process, and the window opens tomorrow. It's a relatively short window. It's 2 weeks. So ComcastRISE.com, go there starting tomorrow if you're a people of color owned business in Harris County or Fort Bend County.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the background. I think that's really important to understand. And the fact that, you've done it once this year and now you're doing it again, that speaks to the need in the community, right? I mean, it speaks to how the response that people wanted applied, and people still are out there that need to apply for the first time. They maybe didn't apply for the first round, or maybe they did and they didn't get that award the first go around. This is an opportunity once again to apply, and as you said, it's $1 million. It's a 2-week window starting tomorrow where people can apply. So that's very important, I think.
Yeah, Juan, and I'll just add one thing to what you said, because it's really important, is I think what we have heard from round one recipients, those who got the $10,000 grant, they were just so surprised. And one of the things they said is they've heard from people who said, oh, I'm not going to apply because I'll never get it. And someone this morning was saying to me, we got to beat that self-defeating talk in our head, and just apply. The other thing that we've heard is, Comcast's a big company, and I'm not going to get this grant. That's big company, but we're absolutely committed to helping small businesses. So you lose nothing by applying, and you potentially can gain so much by applying.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I think sometimes, as you mentioned, sometimes people are unsure about whether they can apply, or they might think, I'm just starting out, I don't have everything in order yet, or I'm just figuring things out. But, there's opportunity there. You can apply. The worst thing that can happen is you learn from this process, and you figure for the next round, whether it's through Comcast RISE or another opportunity, you already have some of that framework built. But I also want to get the perspective of our chamber leaders, Tammi and Paul. So first of all, if you can each tell me a little bit about your chambers, because some folks may not be familiar. So Tammi, if you want to start and share a little bit about your chamber, what you do, and all of that would be wonderful.
Well, sure. And Juan and Toni, thank you so much for the invitation to participate today. We love talking about Comcast, but particularly the Comcast RISE program. And our chamber, the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber, we are celebrating our 5-year milestone anniversary this year. Comcast has been a tremendous partner with us since year one. They're one of our inaugural corporate partners. And, as we're looking at 5 years and beyond, we need our businesses to be successful and to succeed. So we are continuing to work and promote programs like Comcast RISE. Our tag is we are the leading voice of the LGBTQ plus, and let me underscore, allied business community, because we don't go it alone. We work very much with our allied members as well. And so we're, again, 5 years just getting started, but thrilled to be one of the local partners for the Comcast RISE program. So thank you, Toni.
That's wonderful. Congratulations on 5 years.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Paul with the Asian Chamber of Commerce. We're an organization that was founded in 1990. So we're actually going to be celebrating our 30th. It's a big milestone for us with what the whole initiative, and thank you for that. It's just been a long journey for us. As Toni was saying, the Asian community has been really hard hit, impacted, especially before the pandemic even arrived in Houston, where a lot of our Asia town and Asia restaurants were heavily impacted. So we saw the brunt of this, and we were really, really excited to see how Comcast not only just said that they wanted to help, but actually picked Houston as a hub of just really pouring out to our community at large. Asian Chamber of Commerce is an organization that really caters just the Asian community and business owners and helping them thrive. But we also have those who want to do business with the Asian community as well as international presence of people who wanted to use Houston as a jumpstart to being in the U.S. Territories. So we're happy that we're part of this, and even more part of the conversation, because we want to encourage those who are minority-owned business that take advantage of this offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you both can share a lot of stories about the need out there, and in terms of businesses that, just need a little bit of extra push, that extra little support to go to get to the next level, or to make it through that next quarter. So I think it's really important for you all to be here. I'd like to ask you both to share, since we were talking a little bit about the background of Comcast RISE earlier, how did you first learn about the Comcast RISE program? And what was your reaction when you first learned about these grants that were available for your members?
Well, when when the local team with Comcast reached out, as I mentioned, Comcast has been one of our inaugural corporate partners and reached out and said, we'd love to have you all participating in this program. The first thought to me was, I have seen Comcast. I used to work many years ago for one of the local public charter schools, and I saw Comcast doing work. And I'm telling you, this was years ago. I'm not going to date myself, but years ago, working to address this digital divide. Fast forward to the work that I'm doing through the chamber on behalf of the LGBTQ plus and allied business community, and here is Comcast stepping up again, Juan. And I just love, that Comcast starts with a C, because I think we need to say commitment underscore that C with a capital C on commitment. And that was, every turn, whether it's been through our engagement with Comcast, just through supporting us in our first 5 years, but then stepping up to say, we want to help your members, we want to help minority business owners. It is, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And to see a company like Comcast, they truly are modeling what companies, corporations can do in our country, and particularly now to address this pandemic.
Yeah, very true.
And when we have our relationship with Comcast way beyond just this whole initiative, and so having them identified our organization, saying, hey, we want help, and reaching out to our community and letting them know about this initiative, we said yes. And we went, and beyond that, we did a whole campaign and telling people about it. We wanted to make sure they know that there's resources out there. What I realized chambers are good at is we're the voice, and we just help point people to resources. And that's something that we really thrive, and this is one resources that we wanted our community to take advantage of. And they did, and we're very proud to see that a lot of the organization who had been able to be awarded the funds, they were able to just pick up and continue doing this and paying some of the expenses that they were having a hard time with. So we were happy that Comcast really approached us, but even more so that there's a second round of opportunities for those who were able to get the first round of support.
Definitely. And Paul, could you speak to any of the stories about members that you have in your chamber? And then Tammi, I'll come to you and ask you the same question, that might have applied for this grant and received it, and how it's impacted their business.
And thank you for asking that question. As I alluded earlier, the restaurant and this food and service industry was just heavily hit. And so we saw some of them have to close or have to lay off people in that perspective earlier in the pandemic, and then just even more so as things were uncertain, just getting loans and trying to apply loans from that perspective. We did have one member, Mila Session Bistro, who Corey was the owner and applied, and that's an success story. They had a second location that wasn't even ready and able to open, and that just bled money, or that bled just finances and resources. And even more so with this whole help, they're able to now open and now in operations in the Sugar Land area. So this is one example of what has transpired and helped, and they didn't have to close down or stop operations, but even more so now open and be able to service the community. And we have another gentleman, Naeem, who is actually also disabled, and his whole story of being able to be a small business owners and being able to get that not to say but that whole resource of saying, hey, now I have more room financial so that I don't have to worry and continue my operation. So we're really thankful for what that's doing in the small businesses that are capitalizing and doing this. But even beyond that, some of them also receive not necessarily funding, but resources with their technology, with their makeovers and whatnot. And they were funded and being able to be awarded in those helps. So we saw a lot of them take advantage of that, and we hope that others who will hopefully apply for the next round to be able to be awarded. And like Toni said, just be able to apply. And what I will say this, tell your story. Their story is something that they'll look at, but even more, everyone has a story. And in that story, what is it that is needed so that you can be able to continue what you're doing in your operations and having an impact in your community and your customers.
Wow, I love hearing those stories, and the fact is that small business owners are fueling our economy, and when you help a small business, you're not only helping that business owner, you're helping them to keep people on their payroll, you're helping them to continue investing in the community. So I think it's beneficial for the entire community. So Tammi, I want to hear about your success stories that you could share.
Yes, and we've had quite a few members, whether the technical assistants or the investment fund. But with the investment fund specifically, I would love to share the story of Outsmart Magazine. And for those listeners that don't know, Outsmart Magazine is a 28-year company that has been telling the stories and sharing the stories of our lives and our history in the LGBTQ plus community. And they were able to get one of the investment grant funds, and they've be able to do more from a digital platform, because think about that. They were very much, a paper-based magazine before the pandemic hit. Of course, they were doing some digital, as we all were, but they've had to retool their model because people aren't picking up that magazine as much. Hopefully that's going to change. And so that's been a dramatic opportunity for them to be able to take the investment and funds and really shift their business model around this digital piece. But here is such a great, I want to just weave that story in. Here's a magazine that we need to survive for the LGBTQ community. We need it for the long term. We need it for historical context. And so for them to come in and get, these immediate funds available to help them, it's incredible to help what I would call an institutional company in the LGBTQ plus business community in Houston. And then we have some of our other members that have received the technical assistance, gotten commercials that they're now using to promote their businesses. And I'm going to tell you, when you talk to them and they call and they say, I got the Comcast RISE grant, or I got technical assistance, to hear the enthusiasm and the excitement on the other end of the phone, that to me translates to hope. What I'm hearing is hope in their voices, that they can make it one more day, one more month, one more year, and ultimately the length of, the future in terms of how long they want to run their businesses and serve the community.
That's so true. And I think it's so important to remember that, nobody was expecting, March 2020 to change the way our momentum was going. Nobody was expecting that the next 2 years were going to turn out the way that they've been turning out. Nobody knew that. So especially for a business owner, if you didn't have your rainy day fund, or even if you did, you might have gone through it pretty quickly. So the fact that this program is geared towards people of color, small businesses of color, I think that's really important, because it levels the playing field a bit, so that these business owners have opportunity to compete with each other, not with the greater pool of business owners. That there are other opportunities out there that are not necessarily for people of color. But Toni, I want to ask you, what should businesses know about Comcast's commitment to the community, to the local community, beyond even the Comcast RISE program?
Yeah, I'm just amazed by these stories, just because I don't think we can hear them enough. So Tammi and Paul, thank you for sharing. That's some real stuff, and the other thing I'll say is this is sort of tangible assistance going to these small businesses in the form of sort of the advertising or the tech makeovers or the grants. But it's got another component, two components, probably more actually. But one of them is that sort of that emotional, somebody said this morning, it allowed her to breathe. As a small business owner, it allowed her to just sort of say, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And, these small business owners have big dreams, and they should have big dreams. And I think one of the things that I love about Comcast as a company is that we as a company truly are believers in big dreams. This is a strange analogy, but I ride the Peloton. And one of the instructors, she says, I got my hand on your back. I got my hand on your back. And that to me sort of says so much about the company that Comcast is with the program like this, is, hand on your back. And as a company, we do have the ability to reach down a little bit and lift up small businesses and others in the community, other nonprofit organizations outside of the Comcast RISE that we've been partners with for many, many years before my time, form great friendships and hopefully are making a difference in the community. But I'll also say one last thing on this question, that while we as a company do have a unique opportunity to really make a difference and move the needle when it comes to digital equity, we cannot do this alone. And so the conversations that we're hearing today, and the partnerships, and the commitment, and the big C, that's the magic here. So know that as a company, we're here to help. That as I said, these grants, no strings attached. Just get to that website and Juan, I know you're going to give me an opportunity to give details, but I'm going to say it one more time. I can't say it enough. The window opens tomorrow. So whatever you do, don't procrastinate. It's not first come, first served. Paul and I were talking about that. But if anybody is anything like me, I get all excited about something and then I might move on to other important things. And I just, want people to get there when the window opens tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a great point. Apply early. Don't wait till the last minute. Apply early. And if you're just joining us, I love that analogy, by the way. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about the Comcast RISE Investment Fund, which is opening a grant opportunity tomorrow, October 1st, and it's going to be open through October 14th. Here in Houston alone, there are 100 grants available that are $10,000 each. If you can do the math, that's $1 million that are available. Again, in the Houston market for people in the Houston. So it's Harrison, Fort Bend County for small business owners of color. Now I want to talk to Tammi and Paul. I want to get your advice. What's some advice that we can give business owners that are thinking about applying, that are, maybe hesitant, or maybe they're ready, they're excited and they're ready to go? What advice would you have to give to those members or people who are potential members for you?
I would say this, like Toni said, don't procrastinate. This is an opportunity that sometimes you say, I'll do it later. I do it later, and you miss that boat because the window closed. There's a short window because they receive a lot of applications, and so they have to have a point where they need to close it. So just take that thing, look at your finance, look at the things that or what are your needs, and tell your story. I think what I've seen in people's grants and other people's grants, and not only just for this one, for other things, is people don't tell their story. So it's hard for the decision maker to understand what your needs are, or what you faced and what you did to award any type of assistance. So I think having that aspect where you can share as much information you feel comfortable, that helps illustrate what has happened to your business, and even more so how you can utilize these funds to really grow and to really be sustainable. I think that's what they're looking for as an organization that can be sustainable and that they can support. And even more so, even having an award of assistance goes a long way, where they can provide a lot of things, and for them to know you and know what you're about. I think this could be a first step in that perspective. That's what my take on encouraging people to apply and hopefully be successful in just sharing that whole aspect, because there's only a good crop of 100, and they want to make sure that they know about you.
Right. And just from the stories that you all shared, the stories themselves behind those businesses. I mean, if you don't share, what those stories are, the 28 years of being in business, the restaurants that have been impacted, those make a difference when you're thinking about people reviewing that application on the other side. What about you, Tammi? What do you think?
Well, I'll just reiterate what Paul said. I mean, telling your story without a doubt. And then, just a real technical, hopefully all of business owners listening now are adding this to their calendar to start the application process tomorrow.
Right.
And get it done. Get it done. There's no reason to hesitate to go ahead and get your application in and take advantage. So, we were talking about this earlier about mindset. Oh, well, I'm not going to get it, or I'm not, don't go there. Don't go there. Put the application in, take advantage of this opportunity. And, what I've found, and I've heard this from some of our members, because they've applied for, there's been a lot of different companies and government stepping up, but every time they put in an application, they get a little bit better at it. Mm-hmm. So it is a great learning opportunity as well to hone your story, to have all of your information ready to go, and then take the step, put in your application, and then, hopefully going to get some good news.
Right. And if you know somebody that's already received the funds, ask them how to, ask them for advice, have them maybe review what you're going to write, what you're going to submit, so that you can give you their expert advice on how they were able to receive it. And maybe they can give you some helpful tips. I'm sorry, Paul, I think you were going to add something.
Yeah, I want to add something. We had an interesting conference that said rebound, recovery, engage. And I know Toni mentioned the last part is RISE, right? And that whole R, RISE and that's why it's called an investment fund. They're looking at organizations that they can invest in, and that they can push it, and not just going down, but going up, and to grow. And that's the whole principle of what this whole support is looking at organizations that they can really see, I want to invest in this because I see a promising recovery that will be, so that they can rebound and they can recover and re-engage with their community and customers. That's the whole principle.
Yeah. And before we leave, I do want to ask for both you and Tammi and Paul to answer the question about, how important is it for corporations to step up at a time like this, especially for, business owners who may be affected a little bit more than others?
Well, I'll just say it's incredibly important, and with the support that we've seen both from companies like Comcast and government, I mean, it has been a game changer for so many businesses to get, through this pandemic. And I think when we get on the other side of the pandemic, we are going to be hearing remarkable stories. We're already hearing them, but I mean, it is going to be that point in time of hearing those stories about how these literally were lifesavers in terms of these businesses. And so I do think companies have a responsibility to step up and give back. Because why? It's about economic development. It's about our economy. And we know small businesses fuel our economy in this country. So it makes a good corporate sense for companies like Comcast, of course, to give back. But when it's in their DNA, like it is with Comcast, that's an even better story. And again, another reason why we love partnering with them.
Yeah, to echo that, corporate social responsibility, that's a big buzzword, but even more so, I think that should be in every ecosystem of any type of corporation. It is how that they can engage back into the community. If the community is not doing well, then it affects their company. So it's in turn as a partnership, but even more so investing in small business, especially investing in the chambers, because they're on the trenches. We're in the trenches to getting to know the small business, where to help them, to put them in an equal playing field and helping them grow. That's the chamber business, but even more so, we're the nonprofits too as well. We're there in need of support with partners like Comcast and those who choose to support small business. That will help boost the economy. And as Tammi would mention, that small businesses are the economy, right? This is the bulk of the ones that employ our economy and get thriving. So we encourage those who are corporations to really go back and revisit their social responsibility plans and really put where their dollars are in helping that business.
Yeah, and Houston being such a diverse city, I think it's the perfect place to put a program like this into place. And I think, you know, it also speaks to our community. So Jack Berger, who's one of the recipients, he says if you have questions, if you need advice, ask him. He's got one early. He received a grant earlier this year. So there you go, folks. Ask Jack.
That's our outsmart. That's our outsmart, folks.
See, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go. And I think that's one thing about the Houston community is that we, you know, the small business and overall the community, we help each other, and that's part of our fabric. That's part of our culture here in Houston, and so Comcast is part of that, and Comcast is doing that. So Toni, I know you want to tell us, you know, about the deadlines, and you want to tell everybody. So please take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, and gosh, just so appreciative of all the great words and support and partnership. And Tammi and Paul, you've done such a great job already helping us get the word out. Juan, you're just sort of a partner extraordinaire, and love working with you. And you're just a really important piece of everything that we're doing here at Comcast. So thank you to you too. All right, details, ComcastRISE.com. Go there right now. Go there when you see this replay. The window opens tomorrow. There it is, ComcastRISE.com. The window opens tomorrow. That's October 1, and it closes October 14th. So that's it. I know the application is fairly simple, as I said. So as one of our other round one winners said, run to that website and get your application in.
That absolutely is the truth. Go run to that application site, ComcastRISE.com, and get your application in. I want to thank my special guest today, Toni Beck, who's Vice President of External Affairs at Comcast Houston, Paul Gore, who's Director of Community Development at the Asian Chamber of Commerce, and Tammi Wallace, who's co-founder and President and CEO of the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sharing this exciting news for the business community. And I hope for people that are watching this that you go and apply, because it really is important. And it's a great opportunity. Like Toni said at the beginning, it's free money.
Yeah.
No
And tell your story. Tell your story.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Great
right.
point. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for watching.